You
She
must
missed
take
the
this
mating
cloak and
ceremony
go.
to help a
They are
stranger.
coming for you.
The next day,
I will not
the
abandon
Alpha
my
King
post,
came
woman.
looking for her.
Stand aside.
In the heart of the kingdom of Eldrath, where stone castles loomed over the forests and mountains, the day had begun as any other. Yet for Leora, the daughter of a noble house, it was a day that would change the course of her life forever. She walked swiftly along the cobblestone path leading from her home, her dark cloak brushing against the morning grass. Today was the mating ceremony, a sacred ritual that had bound the Alpha King to his chosen mate for generations. It was said that the ceremony was more than tradition. It was the heartbeat of the kingdom. The chosen would share a bond of soul and power, and to refuse it was almost unheard of. Leora's heart, however, felt heavy. Her mind wandered not to the ceremony, not to the grand halls filled with candlelight, music, and noble whispers. Instead, she was thinking of the world beyond the stone walls, of the people who suffered quietly, unseen, and unremembered. Duty weighed on her like an iron chain, yet so did compassion. And today, the two would clash in ways she could not imagine. As she turned a bend in the path near the edge of the forest, she heard a faint, strangled cry. At first she thought it was an animal, perhaps a wolf caught in a hunter's trap. But the sound carried a human pain, a voice raw, broken, pleading. Curiosity and instinct propelled her forward. Through the mist she saw him, a stranger, pale and shivering, his dark clothes torn and a deep cut running across his arm. Blood stained his sleeve, seeping into the dirt below. His face was handsome but unfamiliar, and his eyes, gray as storm clouds, stared at her with a mixture of fear and hope. "Please help me," he whispered. His voice was weak, but there was a strange intensity behind it, as if the moment of life and death had stripped away all pretense. Leora's pulse quickened. She was supposed to hurry to the ceremony, to arrive at the sacred altar before the sun reached its peak. Every minute she delayed could be seen as defiance, but she could not turn away, not when someone needed her. "Stay with me," she said softly, dropping her cloak to press against the wound. She tied a strip of cloth around his arm, her fingers trembling as she applied pressure. "You'll be safe. I'll take care of you." The stranger's eyes softened for a brief moment, relief and gratitude flickering across his face. "Why would you help me?" he asked. Leora hesitated, her heart a tumult of thoughts. "Because it is the right thing to do," she said simply. It was a dangerous choice. In Eldrath, the Alpha King's rituals were sacred. Missing the ceremony was not just a personal affront, it was a political crime, a stain on one's honor. Yet as she looked at the stranger, she knew she could not abandon him to die in the shadows of the forest. With careful effort, she helped him stand. Supporting him, they walked deeper into the trees, searching for a place where he could rest. The forest seemed alive, ancient and watching. Leaves rustled like whispered warnings, and the mist wrapped around them like cold silk. Leora could feel eyes upon them, some unseen, perhaps magical, as though the land itself disapproved of her choice. They reached a small clearing where the sun's first rays struggled through the canopy. Leora guided him to a fallen log and settled him gently. He leaned against it, exhausted, and closed his eyes. "Do you think they will come for me?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "Who?" she asked. "The Alpha," he said. There was fear in his tone, not of men, but of something far greater. "If I live, he will find me." Leora frowned. The Alpha King. She had seen his banners, his heralds, his presence in the castle, but never him. He was a figure shrouded in mystery, his power absolute. To think of him now, seeking this man, sent a shiver down her spine. She could not have guessed how closely her own fate would soon intertwine with his. Hours passed. Leora tended to the stranger, cleaning his wound and offering him water from her flask. She spoke little, afraid that revealing too much would endanger them both. Still, she could not help but feel a connection, a strange thread tying them together, fragile but real. Then the forest shifted. The mist deepened and a wind swept through the trees with a whisper like distant voices. Leora felt a chill and instinctively looked around. The stranger stirred and opened his eyes, now wide with something akin to dread. "They're coming," he said. "Who?" she asked again, though a sense of foreboding had begun to settle in her chest. "The Alpha King," he said firmly, "and he will not be pleased." Leora's stomach twisted. She had heard tales of him, a man both feared and revered, known for his strength, his sharp mind, and his unyielding will. The thought of his wrath sent a shiver down her spine, but even as fear gripped her, a part of her, rebellious, brave, burned with defiance. She had chosen to do the right thing. She would not turn back now. The stranger coughed, weak and trembling, and Leora held him steady. "We must move," she said. "They will find us if we stay." Together they moved through the forest, each step a careful balance between haste and stealth. Shadows stretched long and dark, and the air seemed heavy with an unseen presence. Leora could not shake the feeling that the forest itself was testing them, measuring her resolve, her courage, and perhaps even her heart. Finally, as the sun climbed higher, they emerged near a small abandoned cottage. Leora helped the stranger inside, setting him by a rough-hewn table. The place was simple, silent, and free from the watchful eyes of the outside world. He looked at her, gratitude and something deeper flickering in his gaze. "Why did you save me?" he asked again. "Because no one else would," she said. And in that simple truth, she realized something profound. This act, small as it might seem, had changed everything. It had set in motion events that could alter the kingdom itself. The forest seemed to hold its breath as Leora prepared a small meal, her mind racing. The ceremony had passed without her. The Alpha King would know and he would come. The question was not if, but when. As night fell, the cottage was quiet, save for the crackle of fire and the soft breathing of the stranger. Leora sat by the window, looking out at the mist-covered land, her thoughts heavy with uncertainty. She had done what she believed was right, yet the weight of destiny pressed upon her. Every moment of peace was fleeting, every breath shadowed by the inevitable confrontation to come. Hours passed, and then a sudden sound broke the silence, the distant beat of hooves against stone, a sound that echoed with authority and power. Leora's heart leapt into her throat. The stranger stirred beside her, his eyes opening wide. "It has begun," he said softly. "He's coming." Leora's hand tightened around the edge of the window frame. Her mind raced with questions. How angry would he be? Would he punish her? Or was there something more? Something in his gaze, in the stories whispered in the halls of the castle, that hinted at curiosity, even fascination. The wind blew through the trees, carrying with it the scent of leather and iron, of smoke and cold steel. The forest seemed to pulse with anticipation, as though the world itself awaited the meeting of two fates, the Alpha King and the girl who had defied him. Leora closed her eyes for a moment, feeling a strange calm settle over her fear. Whatever came next, she knew she had made her choice, and some choices once made could never be undone. The hooves drew nearer. The shadow of a rider loomed at the edge of the clearing, tall, commanding, impossible to ignore. Leora's heart pounded. She felt the air shift, as if the forest itself bowed before him. And then, in the fading light of dusk, she heard the words that would change everything. "Leora, you missed the ceremony. I've come for you." Her breath caught. The moment of reckoning had arrived. The choice she had made in compassion would now collide with the power of the Alpha King, and the world she knew would never be the same. The first light of dawn painted the sky in muted shades of gold and gray, but Leora's heart felt neither light nor warm. The forest around the small cottage seemed unusually still, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. Every sound, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of a bird, felt magnified, a warning echoing through the misty morning. She had barely slept, and yet every nerve in her body was alert. She knew what was coming. The words of the stranger from the night before haunted her. "He's coming, the Alpha King, and he will not be pleased." Leora tried to steady herself. She had acted from her heart, helping the wounded man when no one else would. She had chosen compassion over duty. And now that choice had summoned the most feared figure in the kingdom, a man whose name alone could silence entire courts. A sudden sound snapped her from her thoughts, the steady beat of hooves against the hard earth, growing louder, sharper, closer. She moved to the window and peered through the mist. The sight froze her in place. A single rider approached, clad in black and silver armor, his tall figure unmistakable even from a distance. The horse beneath him moved with powerful grace, muscles rippling under the morning light. And the rider's presence was something more than human. It radiated command, authority, and danger all at once. It was Alpha King Kale. The stranger beside her stirred weakly, his gray eyes widening in fear. "I told you," he whispered. "He will not wait. He will find you wherever you are." Leora's heart pounded. She had never seen Kale in person, but the tales were enough. A king bound by a mysterious curse, a leader both admired and feared, whose word could shape kingdoms and whose wrath could destroy lives. And now he was coming for her. She turned to the stranger. "We must leave," she said, her voice trembling despite her resolve. "We cannot stay here." He shook his head weakly. "It is too late. He knows where you are. You cannot outrun him." The sound of hooves stopped abruptly outside the clearing. Leora's stomach clenched. The forest grew unnaturally quiet, as if the world itself were waiting for what would happen next. A shadow fell across the doorway. She turned slowly, and her eyes met those of the Alpha King. He dismounted effortlessly, the movement precise, commanding, and terrifying in its calmness. His dark eyes, sharp as obsidian, locked onto hers, and in that instant Leora felt as if every secret thought, every fear, every choice she had ever made was exposed. "You," he said, his voice low, powerful, carrying both anger and something deeper, almost unreadable. "You missed the mating ceremony." Leora swallowed hard. I had to help someone," she said softly, gesturing to the stranger. "He needed me. I could not leave him to die." Kale's gaze shifted to the man, then back to her. His expression remained unreadable, but there was a flicker of something, curiosity, perhaps, or annoyance, or maybe even admiration. Leora could not tell which. "You defy tradition for a stranger?" he asked, his tone both incredulous and dangerous. "Do you understand what that means?" "I understand," Leora said firmly, her voice steadying as she met his eyes. "I will accept whatever consequences come, but I could not abandon him." "He needed me." Kale studied her, silence stretching between them like a drawn sword. Finally, he spoke again, slower this time, as if weighing each word. "Most would see only themselves, only their duty, but you act differently. That is rare and troubling." The stranger stirred weakly beside her. Leora glanced at him, then back at Kale. "Please," she said, "he will not survive without help. I only did what was right." Kale's eyes softened slightly, not entirely, but just enough to hint at a complexity beneath his stern exterior. "Right is a matter of perspective," he said. "For some, right means obedience. For others, it means mercy. You have chosen mercy. That will not save you from consequences, however." He stepped closer, and Leora felt the air shift around him, heavy with authority and an unspoken power. Every instinct in her body screamed at her to step back, but something deeper held her in place. Something in his eyes, sharp and penetrating, made her feel both exposed and seen. "Come," he said abruptly. "We will go to the castle." Leora hesitated. She had expected anger, punishment, perhaps even imprisonment. But there was something in his command that left no room for argument. She nodded reluctantly, helping the stranger to stand, though he leaned heavily on her arm. Together, they followed Kale through the forest, each step tense and uncertain. The journey to the castle was quiet, broken only by the sound of hooves and the occasional rustle of leaves. Kale rode ahead, silent, his eyes scanning the misty paths as if reading secrets hidden in the trees. Leora and the stranger followed, the weight of anticipation pressing on them like a physical force. When the castle finally came into view, perched atop a cliff and surrounded by jagged stone walls, Leora felt a mixture of awe and dread. The gates were massive, carved with intricate runes and symbols of old magic. The air was colder here, heavier, and the sense of history pressed down on her like a living thing. Kale dismounted smoothly and led them inside, the halls vast, echoing, and shadowed. Servants and guards hurried past, casting curious glances at the unusual procession. Whispers followed them like ghosts, carrying tales of the Alpha King and the girl who had dared defy him. They reached a chamber high in the castle, where Kale motioned for them to sit. The stranger sank into a chair, exhausted, while Leora remained standing, her hands clasped in front of her. Kale paced slowly, as though measuring the distance between them, between her and the power she had defied. "You must understand," he said finally, stopping before her. "The mating ceremony is not merely tradition. It is a bond, a magic, a choice that ties your soul to another. Missing it is not a small matter. It could have consequences beyond what you imagine." "I understand," Leora said again, her voice calm despite the fear knotting her stomach. "And yet I would do it again. I could not leave him to die." Kale's gaze softened just slightly. "Your courage is remarkable," he said, "and dangerous. Most would not have the strength to act as you did. Yet you carry more than courage. You carry defiance, and defiance is complicated." Leora felt a strange mix of relief and tension. Relief that he seemed to recognize her choice, and tension because his words carried a weight she did not fully understand. Kale was not merely judging her actions. He was measuring her, testing her, reading her in ways that left her heart pounding. The hours passed, and still, Kale remained in the chamber, silent at times, speaking only when necessary. Leora began to see glimpses of the man beneath the armor, beneath the authority. A man bound by duty and curse, a man capable of sharp anger but also quiet reflection. She began to understand that his power was not only in his strength, but in the careful, deliberate way he commanded everything around him. As evening fell, Kale finally spoke again. "You have chosen a path few would dare," he said, "and now you must live with it. The ceremony, it cannot be reversed, but perhaps there is a way to repair what has been broken. Perhaps." His words were cryptic, and Leora felt a shiver of both hope and fear. She did not yet know what he meant, but the possibility that her actions might not doom her entirely was enough to stir something within her. A soft knock at the door interrupted them. A messenger entered, bowing deeply. "Your Majesty," the man said, "the council awaits your presence. They have heard of the delay." Kale's jaw tightened. He gave a single nod to Leora. "Stay," he said. "Do not leave this room. I will return soon." Once the messenger left, silence fell. The only sound was the crackle of the fire in the hearth. Leora felt her heart racing. She knew the next moments could change everything, her life, her destiny, perhaps even the kingdom itself. Kale returned an hour later, his expression unreadable. "We will not speak of punishment yet," he said. "But understand this, your choices carry consequences. Every act of defiance, every moment of mercy will shape the future, and your future is now entwined with mine." Leora's breath caught. The words were not threatening, yet they carried a weight she could not ignore. Something unspoken hung in the air between them, a connection forged not by ceremony, not by duty, but by choice, courage, and the strange, compelling power of fate. The stranger watched silently, his eyes flicking between them, unsure of what to say. He had been saved, yet he sensed that the real story, the real challenge, had only just begun. Kale turned to Leora, his gaze locking onto hers once more. "Tomorrow," he said quietly, "you will meet the council, and then we will see whether your heart is as strong as your will." Leora nodded, feeling a mixture of fear, anticipation, and something else, something she did not yet name. The Alpha King was a storm, fierce and unstoppable, and she had stepped into its path willingly. And yet she could not deny the strange thrill of standing here, facing him, defying destiny with open eyes and a willing heart. The night settled over the castle, quiet and heavy. Outside, the wind whispered through the towers and battlements, carrying with it the promise of trials yet to come. Leora sat by the window, staring at the misted lands below, wondering what fate had in store. And somewhere in the shadows of the castle, the Alpha King watched, considering, calculating, intrigued in ways that went far beyond anger or punishment. The balance of power, the delicate threads of destiny, had begun to shift, and neither of them would ever be the same again. The castle walls faded behind them as Leora walked beside Kale through the forest that bordered Eldrath. The trees loomed tall and ancient, their trunks gnarled like twisted fingers reaching for the sky. The morning mist clung to every leaf and blade of grass, carrying with it a chill that seeped into her bones. Yet Leora's mind was warmer with a strange mix of fear and curiosity. She had survived Kale's initial confrontation, but now she would see the man himself in the wilds where no walls could shield them. Kale walked ahead, silent and precise, his long cloak brushing the undergrowth without a sound. Every step he took seemed measured, deliberate, as though the forest itself bent around him. Leora could feel his presence like a force pressing gently against her back, and despite the tension, there was something magnetic about it. The stranger they had rescued walked between them, leaning heavily on the support of both. He still appeared weak, his gray eyes wide with unease, and Leora feared he would collapse at any moment. She kept one hand on his arm, guiding him carefully through the uneven forest floor. "You should not have helped me," the stranger whispered. His voice was hoarse but determined. "By saving me, you have drawn danger upon yourself. He is not a man who forgives easily." "I know," Leora said softly, "but I could not leave you, I would not." Kale's deep voice interrupted the forest's quiet. "Compassion is dangerous," he said, not turning to look at her. "But sometimes it is the only choice that matters." Leora's heart skipped. There was no judgment in his tone, only a truth that resonated deep inside her. Kale was not here to punish her. Not yet. And somehow that made her feel both relieved and unsettled. The forest grew darker as they moved deeper, the mist curling around their feet like living tendrils. The air was thick with an unfamiliar scent, sweet and sharp, like the smell of rain on stone. Shadows seemed to shift unnaturally as though the trees themselves were watching, waiting. "The curse," Leora said cautiously, breaking the silence. "You mentioned the curse. What does it mean? Why is the ceremony so important?" Kale's pace slowed slightly. "The mating ceremony is more than tradition," he said, his voice low, almost reverent. "It binds two souls together, yes, but it also anchors my power. Without it, the balance falters. The kingdom and I are left vulnerable." Leora's mind raced. "So by missing the ceremony, I endangered you," Kale's dark eyes met hers. "Perhaps, but also you showed strength of will. Most would have obeyed blindly. You did not. That makes things interesting." Leora swallowed. The word interesting felt strange coming from a man like him. Dangerous, powerful, commanding. And yet it was a word that carried something softer, something almost personal. Hours passed as they walked. The stranger occasionally stumbled and Leora would steady him, while Kale remained a silent shadow ahead, observing, guiding, and protecting. The forest seemed alive, and Leora soon realized it was not just alive, it was testing them. Vines moved subtly in their path, shadows lengthened unnaturally, and whispers floated through the air, faint but deliberate. At one point, a low growl echoed from the dense trees. The stranger froze, panic flickering in his eyes. Leora's heart thumped and she gripped his arm tighter. Kale stopped immediately, turning to face the darkness. "Stay behind me," he commanded. The authority in his voice left no room for argument. He drew a dagger that shimmered faintly with an otherworldly light. A massive wolf emerged from the shadows, its fur black as night and eyes glowing with unnatural fire. Leora's breath caught in her throat, but Kale's calm presence steadied her. He moved with effortless precision, keeping the wolf at bay without a single wasted movement. Within moments, the wolf retreated, melting into the forest shadows as if it were never there. Leora exhaled shakily. It was real, she whispered. Kale's eyes softened just slightly. Everything here tests strength and courage, he said. Even the smallest decisions can have consequences. The forest gradually opened into a small glade where sunlight struggled to reach the moss-covered ground. Kale motioned for them to rest. The stranger sank to the earth, too exhausted to speak, while Leora sat beside him, her thoughts heavy with the encounter. "You are stronger than I thought," Kale said quietly, his gaze fixed on her. "Brave, compassionate, and stubborn. That combination is rare." Leora felt a flush of warmth, mixed with unease. Kale's words were not praise alone. They carried an intensity, a weight she could not ignore. She realized that his eyes, so dark and commanding, seemed to see into her very soul. Hours passed and Kale remained mostly silent, watching her, studying her, yet never crossing the boundary of closeness. The tension was electric, a quiet storm that made her pulse race and her thoughts swirl. Every glance, every slight movement carried meaning. Suddenly, a rustling sound drew their attention. From the edge of the glade, a figure emerged. It was the stranger Leora had rescued before, no longer weak or trembling but standing tall, eyes sharp and calculating. "You," he said, his voice firm. "There is more at stake than you know." Kale's gaze darkened. "Speak quickly," he said. "Time is short and the forest does not wait for indecision." The stranger's eyes flicked to Leora, then back to Kale. "The ceremony, it is tied to more than just the kingdom. There are forces beyond your understanding, ancient magic, prophecies that predate even your rule. By helping me, you have entangled yourself with them, and with him." Leora's pulse quickened. "Me, entangled with magic." Kale's expression remained unreadable. "Everything has consequences," he said simply. "You are learning that now." The stranger took a deep breath. "There is a path forward, but it is dangerous. You will need to trust each other, more than either of you has done before. One misstep and the consequences could destroy not only your lives but the kingdom itself." Leora's hands trembled slightly. "And if we fail?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Kale's gaze was steady, unyielding. "Then we will face the storm together," he said. "But I do not intend to fail." The air seemed to thrum with a strange energy, a power Leora could feel pressing against her skin. She realized that the forest itself was alive, and that it responded to Kale in ways it did not respond to her. And yet, she also realized something else. The forest had not tested him alone. It had tested them as a unit. The three of them moved deeper into the forest, following a path invisible to the untrained eye, guided by Kale's knowledge and the stranger's cryptic instructions. Every step was a lesson in patience, observation, and courage. Leora began to feel her own senses sharpen, her mind opening to details she had never noticed before. The subtle shift of shadows, the faint whispers in the wind, the patterns in the moss beneath her feet. As night fell, the forest darkened to an almost impenetrable black and the mist thickened, curling around them like fingers. The stranger stopped suddenly. "We are close," he said. "The final test begins soon. Be ready." Kale's eyes narrowed. "Stay alert. Nothing here is as it seems." The glade they entered next was unlike anything Leora had ever seen. The trees arched high, forming a natural cathedral, and the air sparkled faintly with motes of golden light. Shadows moved independently of their sources, and the whispers in the wind were louder now, forming words she could almost understand. "This is it," the stranger said. "The place where truth is revealed and choices decide everything." Leora felt a shiver run down her spine. She glanced at Kale, whose expression remained calm but intense. The storm within him, so restrained, was palpable, and it drew her attention as much as the magic in the glade. "Are you ready?" Kale asked, his voice soft but commanding. Leora nodded, her heart pounding. She did not know what awaited them, but she knew one thing. She would face it with him, side by side. The forest seemed to hold its breath as they stepped forward, into the light and shadows intertwined, toward the unknown trials that would test courage, heart, and destiny. And somewhere deep in the glade, beyond the shimmer of magical light, Leora realized the stranger was not just a man in need. He was a key, a puzzle piece in the larger tapestry of Kale's world, and perhaps a bridge between fear and trust, between despair and hope. The tension between her and Kale had grown, subtle but undeniable. Each glance carried weight, each brush of a hand unintentional but electric. And as they moved deeper into the forest, the unspoken bond between them strengthened, a bond born not of ceremony, but of shared trials, choice, and courage. For the first time, Leora understood. The path forward would not be easy, but she would not walk it alone. And in the shadows, a whisper floated through the trees, a warning she could not yet fully understand. The trial is only beginning. The heart chooses, the soul trembles, and the forest remembers. The glade glowed with a strange golden light, the air thick with magic that seemed almost alive. Shadows shifted unnaturally, and the whispers of the forest swirled around Leora and Kale, carrying secrets older than the kingdom itself. She felt the weight of destiny pressing down on her chest, but also a strange warmth that came from being here with Kale. The trials of the forest had tested her courage, her heart, and her determination, and now the final trial awaited. The stranger they had rescued stood at the edge of the glade, his figure calm and commanding despite the exhaustion that still clung to him. "The forest will reveal what is hidden," he said. "It will demand truth, courage, and the willingness to choose. Only then can the curse be broken or sealed forever." Kale's eyes darkened. "The path is clear," he said, his voice low, steady, and commanding. "We move forward together. No hesitation, no fear." Leora's heart pounded, but she nodded. She could feel Kale's presence beside her, a silent promise of protection, strength, and shared destiny. She took a deep breath and stepped forward, following him into the heart of the glade, where the golden light shimmered like liquid sunlight on moss. The forest seemed to respond to their movement. The ground beneath their feet shifted subtly, and vines coiled as if alive. Leora's pulse quickened, not out of fear but in anticipation. Every step, every breath felt charged with unseen power. Then the first test appeared. A shadow split from the darkness at the far end of the glade, taking the shape of a massive, spectral wolf. Its eyes burned like fire, and its form shimmered as if made of smoke and shadow. The creature growled, low and resonant, shaking the air itself. Kale stepped forward without hesitation. Leora felt the air thrum with his power, a force that radiated outward and made the very forest seem to bend to his will. He did not strike the wolf, nor attempt to harm it. Instead, he faced it calmly, commanding its attention. "Fear it not," he said, his voice echoing through the glade. "It is only a shadow of doubt and past regret. We do not destroy it, we overcome it." Leora felt the truth in his words. The wolf was more than a beast, it was a reflection of fear, of hesitation, of guilt. She closed her eyes, taking Kale's hand for the first time, feeling the warmth and strength that radiated from him. Together, they stepped forward, their courage a shield against the shadow. The wolf lunged, but their bond held strong. Where fear had been, now there was trust. The shadow collapsed into mist, leaving only a faint glow in its place. Leora exhaled shakily, her heart still racing, but a sense of accomplishment bloomed within her. "You see," Kale said quietly, "the forest tests not just the body but the heart. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is the willingness to move forward despite it." Before Leora could respond, the stranger stepped forward. "The next trial awaits," he said, his tone grave. "This is the trial of choice. One of you must make a decision that will determine not just your fate, but the fate of the kingdom, and of the Alpha King himself." Leora turned to Kale, whose expression remained unreadable, yet his eyes held the same intensity she had felt since the moment they met. "What choice?" she asked, her voice soft but steady. "The curse," the stranger said. "It binds Kale to the mating ceremony. It is not simply ritual, it is magic older than the kingdom. To break it, one must act from the heart, not from duty. One must choose freely with complete understanding of the consequences." Kale stepped closer to her. "You hold the power now," he said. "Your courage brought us here. Your compassion saved lives. And now your choice can save me or doom us both." Leora's mind raced. She had faced fear, shadow, and doubt before, but this was different. This was the weight of destiny itself pressing down on her, demanding that she act not only for herself, but for the man beside her, and for the kingdom that relied on him. She began, her voice trembling. "I do not fully understand all of it, but I know this. I will act from my heart, not from fear, not from duty. I choose to trust you and to stand with you." Kale's eyes softened, a subtle shift that made Leora's chest tighten. He reached out, placing his hand gently over hers. "Then we will face this together," he said, and in that simple phrase the forest seemed to lean closer, the golden light intensifying as if acknowledging their bond. The final trial emerged slowly, almost imperceptibly. A circle of shimmering light formed around them, and in its center, a vision appeared. A world divided, with shadows creeping over the lands, and Kale standing alone, burdened by the curse, his power unchecked and destructive. Leora felt a chill. This was the consequence of failure, a kingdom lost, a life undone. But then the vision shifted. She saw another possibility, a world where Kale's power was tempered by trust, by compassion, by her courage. A world where the bond they shared could create strength, not destruction. Leora's breath caught. She realized the forest was not demanding sacrifice, it was demanding understanding and the willingness to act from the heart. She looked at Kale, seeing the weight of centuries in his eyes, the loneliness, the power, and the unspoken fear of losing himself. "I choose hope," she whispered. "I choose trust. I choose to stand with you, Kale. Not because of ceremony, but because I believe in you and in us." For a moment, time seemed to hold its breath. The golden light intensified, swirling around them like liquid fire. Shadows scattered and the air hummed with energy. Kale's hand tightened over hers and he spoke, his voice low and reverent. "Then the curse is broken." The forest responded with a sigh, as if centuries of tension had been released. The mist cleared, the shadows lifted, and a gentle warmth spread through the glade. Leora felt her heart swell with relief and wonder. Kale's presence, once daunting and powerful, now felt balanced, tempered by trust and connection. The stranger stepped back, his eyes calm, a faint smile on his lips. "You have done what few could," he said. "You have acted from courage, compassion, and love. The curse is lifted. The bond is free, but it is yours to nurture. Remember this. True power comes not from dominance, but from understanding and trust." Kale turned to Leora, his gaze softening completely for the first time. The storm that had seemed eternal in him was tempered now, replaced with quiet strength and something more, a quiet, steady affection. "You have changed more than fate," he said. "You have changed me." Leora's breath caught. She felt a warmth in her chest, a sense of belonging she had never known. The forest seemed to celebrate silently around them, as if approving of their choice, their courage, and their bond. As they walked back toward the castle, the stranger fell silent, leaving Leora and Kale to their own thoughts. The journey back was quieter, reflective, but each step carried the unspoken understanding that their lives had been forever intertwined. The forest no longer felt threatening. It was a witness to their courage, their choices, and the bond they had forged in defiance of destiny. Back at the castle, the halls felt different. Leora moved with a newfound confidence, her steps lighter, her mind clear. Kale walked beside her, his presence steady and reassuring, yet still commanding. Together they had faced fear, shadow, and magic. Together they had chosen. At the ceremonial altar, where the mating ceremony had been missed, Kale and Leora stood side by side. The light from the setting sun filtered through the stained glass windows, casting patterns of gold and crimson across the stone floor. It was not a ceremony of duty or tradition, but a moment of recognition, of choice, courage, and connection. Kale turned to Leora. "The kingdom will never fully understand what has happened here," he said softly, "but it does not matter. We have faced what was necessary and we have chosen each other freely." Leora smiled, her heart full. "And I will stand with you, Kale," she said. "Through shadow and light, through fear and hope, I will stand with you." For the first time, Kale allowed himself to smile, a rare, genuine expression that seemed to carry the weight of centuries. He reached out, taking her hand gently. "Then the future begins here," he said. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting the castle in a gentle glow. Outside, the forest was calm, the whispers quiet and the shadows long but harmless. Leora and Kale stood together, bound not by ritual but by choice, courage, and the quiet, steady power of trust. The kingdom would face trials in the days to come, as all kingdoms do, but in that moment, in that golden light, the future seemed full of possibility. The curse was broken, the bond was forged, and the hearts of two souls, once tested by shadow and fear, had found each other. And in the silence, Leora realized that true strength was not in power or fear. It was in the courage to choose, the compassion to act, and the love that grew quietly, steadily, like the sun rising after the longest night. The forest whispered around them one last time, as if approving, as if acknowledging the bond they had created. And together they stepped forward into the dawn, ready to face whatever came next, side by side.